Hey, this is Sam Black with my first match with this black-red vintage cube deck. I've won the roll, and I'm on the play, and I have a hand with a plan. It's a good plan. I have basically the goal with this deck is to establish one of a number of 2-card combos using tutor cards to do it. And I have Strip Mine, and I can use Imperial Seal to find Crucible of Worlds. And with Terminate and Damnation to slow my opponent down, I should be able to lock my opponent out of the game with Crucible Strip Mine fast enough to win. So this hand is a keep because it has a clear plan. So I'm going to lead with the Swamp. And I could Imperial Seal here for Crucible, but there's a chance that I draw it or that something changes in what I need, and I want to Imperial Seal for something different next turn, and I don't think that it's super likely that I'm going to want to cast Terminate on 2, although it's not unreasonable that I would want to cast Terminate at the end of my opponent's second turn, but I decided that it was best to hold off a turn on the Imperial Seal. I draw Shriekmaw, which doesn't really change anything, and Imperial Seal for Crucible. My opponent Vampiric Tutors. Would have been really bad for me if that were Ashiok. But a True Name Nemesis I can answer with Damnation, so not too bad. I have no idea if my opponent tutored for Sapphire or True Name Nemesis or not, but maybe they got something that they haven't played yet. But I'm just gonna carry on with my plan, cast Crucible, take a hit from True Name Nemesis. My opponent plays Packrat. So now, failing to draw a land, I'm just going to play Strip Mine twice and kill the Packrat, or use Strip Mine twice to take out all my opponent's black mana. I can afford to just take some hits from True Name Nemesis here because my opponent is both playing blue-black and getting cut off on resources, so that as long as I stabilize at any point, I should be fine. And I still haven't seen an incredibly powerful card. Maybe my opponent tutored for True Name Nemesis, thinking that I just might not be able to deal with it, but it's possible that my opponent found some expensive card they haven't been able to cast yet, and so there's some extra value to aggressively going off after their lands, knowing that they have their best card and might just be about to cast it. So I draw a Swamp here, and I'm still not under enough pressure that I feel like I need to... Well, it's strictly better to play the Strip Mine rather than the Swamp here, because now I have the option to go after my opponent's lands or build up to 4 mana, and I can just wait on that decision. I don't think that destroying one of my opponent's 3 blue sources when they have 2 cards plus a draw step is that important. And my opponent plays a Swamp, and now my primary fear is that my opponent has Cryptic Command, so I want to try to resolve the Damnation in case my opponent has any counterspell, so that I still have some time to try to deal with the situation. So I want to both play around Cryptic Command and resolve Damnation this turn, which the Dark Ritual lets me do. So my plan is to Strip Mine a land, and then Ritual the Damnation, and then I can strip mine again. So I'm not even really down a card for using the ritual there. So, oh, I played the swamp first, which I think is wrong. I think that I should have just used the strip mine and then replayed it. Yeah, this plays around nothing extra because I could have replayed the strip mine first and then played Damnation to play around Force Spike or Daze. Anyway, this resolves, and now I have a mana to Vampiric Tutor if I want to, but my opponent concedes anyway. I do think this should have been strip mine and I should have taken out my opponent's swamp, but what I did was good enough, which is sometimes all that matters. And then in the second game, I'm on the draw here, of course, and here again I have a plan. I can, worst case, Imperial Seal for Faithless Looting, discard Grave Titan to Faithless Looting, and reanimate Grave Titan, which I think is easily good enough. The hand also has a free scry, removal, some play to it where I can do something different with the Imperial Seal. So, another clear keep. My opponent leads with Island. I draw Vampiric Tutor, so now I have a lot of options. And I'm just gonna go with plan A and keep the Vampiric Tutor as a backup option. But my opponent Force Spikes the Imperial Seal, so that's fine. My hand worked with only one tutor, and I drew another one, so I'm happy to just trade that off. Now I can scry and then decide if I want a Vampiric. Pack Rat on top, and I decide that the thing that I was going to Vampiric Tutor for is Faithless Looting to get the Grave Titan in the graveyard, and I think that it's fine to just draw Pack Rat instead. Then I get to save the Vampiric Tutor and I can use Pack Rat to get Grave Titan in the graveyard. So I leave that on top and decide not to cast Vampiric. And my opponent plays Entomb, and entombs Consecrated Sphinx. This is going to go well for me based on my hand. My opponent is presumably planning to reanimate Consecrated Sphinx, and I can ultimate price it and reanimate it. So, as expected, my opponent casts Exhume. Unfortunately, my Grave Titan still isn't in the graveyard, and I don't have a way to put it there. And I don't need to change my Pack Rat draw, even though my plan has changed. So in my upkeep, as planned, I cast Ultimate Price. My opponent has already used Force Spike. The Sphinx dies. I draw Pack Rat, but we have better things to do. Reanimate Consecrated Sphinx. So my opponent did not kill it with their upkeep, so now I'm just going off with their reanimation target. I play Ashiok and exile things, hitting two of my very few creatures. But let's not, I don't need those at this point. I didn't think that I needed to use my tutor here. I can just kind of win on the board and then tutor as needed later. I drew Dark Ritual, which was great. It lets me Ritual Grave Titan this turn. And now my opponent's going to Ashiok me again. I draw Mind Twist, which I'm just going to cast because I'm winning on board, and if I get rid of my opponent's hand, it's basically game. They remand it, which draws me 2 cards. Obviously, I'm going to kill Ashiok. I decided to use the zombies to kill Ashiok. If my opponent kills one of them with a Disfigure or something, that's fine. Ashiok still goes down to 1, and my opponent's used a card on an irrelevant resource, and I get to attack for 10, which is conveniently half my opponent's life. I could attack Ashiok with the Sphinx as well to make sure that it dies, but it's just not an immediate enough concern that I think that that's relevant. My opponent's going to Vampiric. I have to discard. I get some more cards. And my opponent presumably Vampiric for Damnation, which makes a lot of sense as it's one of the only cards that can save them from that spot. But my hand is obviously great at this point, and I'm just gonna... I could play a Mountain and play Sneak Attack and sneak in Sheoldred and Pack Rat and try to win this turn, and it would almost certainly work. But I figure it's also safe to just Mind Twist and clear their hand, and then I can win very easily from there. And my opponent concedes to Pack Rat in a full hand. So that's the match.